When we think of Moses, the great deliverer of Israel, we remember the man who parted the Red Sea, who spoke with God face to face upon Mount Sinai, and who received the 10 Commandments. We know his brother Aaron, the first high priest. But the story of his family hides a secret, a silent tragedy centered on a powerful woman, a prophetess and leader, whose name was marked by a divine scar. We speak of his sister, but not the brave girl who watched over baby Moses in a basket upon the Nile. We speak of the woman who, at the height of her influence, dared to challenge the authority of God, and was struck with a punishment so dreadful, so visible, that all Israel halted its journey on her account. A story many overlook when reading the scriptures, yet it bears one of the deepest lessons about pride, judgment, and the unfathomable mercy of God. Who truly was this? What did she do to warrant a punishment so severe that she became, for a time, the cursed sister of Israel's most revered family? And more importantly, why was her story so often forgotten, recorded in the Bible with such detail? Prepare your heart, for we are about to uncover one of the most human and striking narratives of the Exodus. A story that teaches us that no one, no matter how near to God, is above his justice, nor beyond the reach of his forgiveness. The cursed and forgotten sister of Moses. Welcome to Echoes of the Bible. To understand the full story, we must first travel back in time, to the land of Egypt, to an age of great oppression for the people of Israel. The Pharaoh, fearful of the growing number of Hebrews, had issued a dreadful decree. Every newborn Hebrew male was to be cast into the Nile River. In the midst of this terror, a Levite mother named Jochebed, desperately trying to save her baby, placed him in a waterproof basket and set it afloat among the reeds at the river's edge. Her plan was bold, yet full of uncertainty. The fate of that child, and with him, the future of an entire nation, hung by a thread. But that baby was not alone. The book of Exodus gives us a crucial detail, and his sister stood afar off to see what would be done to him. This sister, whose name we later learn as Miriam, was no mere observer. She was a guardian, a silent protector. Imagine the courage of this young girl, watching over him in a dangerous place, with Egyptian soldiers nearby, waiting for the right moment to act. When Pharaoh's daughter discovered the basket and felt compassion for the weeping child, Miriam saw her opportunity. With remarkable wisdom and boldness for her age, she approached the Egyptian princess.
"Shall I go and call a nurse from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?"
The princess agreed, and Miriam ran to call her own mother. Thanks to the swift action of his sister, baby Moses was not only saved from death, he was raised by his own mother, who even received wages for doing so, all under the protection of Egypt's royal house. At this point in the story, Miriam is neither forgotten nor cursed. She is a heroine. Her faith, her wisdom, and her bravery were essential in God's plan to preserve Moses. Years later, after God delivered Israel from Egypt through Moses, we see Miriam again, now as a recognized leader. After crossing the Red Sea, the book of Exodus describes her as the prophetess, the sister of Aaron. She took a tambourine in her hand and led all the women in a song of victory and praise to God. She was a woman of authority, a prophetess, a leader in worship, a central figure alongside her two brothers, Moses and Aaron. She stood at the peak of respect and influence. But it was precisely in that place of honor that something began to change. In the barren wilderness, a dangerous feeling, a seed of pride and envy, began to take root in her heart, leading her to a direct confrontation, not only with her brother, but with the very authority of God who had delivered them. After the glory of the Exodus and the celebration on the shores of the Red Sea, came the harsh reality of the desert. And it is in this place of trial that faith and character are truly revealed. The heroine of the Nile, Miriam, the prophetess who led women in praise, would now face her own inner darkness. The book of Numbers tells us how this sorrowful episode began. Then Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. For he had married a Cushite woman. The complaint about Moses' wife, a woman from Cush, a region believed to be in Ethiopia or southern Arabia, was only the surface. It was merely an excuse, a pretext for what they truly held in their hearts. Verse 2 reveals the true issue.
Has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?
There lies the real poison, envy and pride. Miriam and Aaron also held positions of leadership. Miriam was a prophetess. Aaron was the high priest. But they began to feel jealous of the unique and special relationship Moses had with God. They were challenging the authority that God himself had given to Moses. This was not a mere family dispute. It was a direct challenge to the divine order established by God. And the Bible tells us that God heard their murmuring. Immediately, the anger of the Lord was kindled against them. Suddenly, God summoned all three to the entrance of the tabernacle of meeting, the sacred tent. Imagine the tension. The cloud of God's presence descended and stood at the entrance, an unmistakable sign that something very serious was about to take place. God called Aaron and Miriam forward and spoke to them directly, defending his servant Moses in a powerful way.
Hear now my words. If there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to him in a vision. I speak to him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, even plainly, and not in dark sayings. And he sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?
God was making it abundantly clear that his relationship with Moses was unique, unlike that with any other prophet. He spoke to him directly as to a friend. And by murmuring against Moses, they were not merely criticizing their brother, they were scorning the very choice and authority of God himself. After this stern rebuke, the text says, the cloud departed from the tabernacle. And when Aaron turned toward Miriam, he was overcome with horror. His sister, the prophetess, the leader, was covered with leprosy. Her skin was white as snow. In those days, leprosy was not merely a dreadful disease of the skin. It was considered a judgment from God, a visible sign of deep sin or impurity. A person afflicted with leprosy was declared unclean, cast out of the camp, and forced to live in isolation, separated from family and from the presence of God in the tabernacle. It was a social and spiritual death. The heroic sister of Moses had, in an instant, become the cursed sister, marked by her own pride. Aaron, the high priest, seeing his sister in such a condition, was filled with panic and remorse. Immediately, he recognized the gravity of their sin. He turned to Moses, not as an equal brother, but in desperate supplication, as we read in Numbers.
Alas, my lord, please do not lay this sin on us in which we have acted foolishly and in which we have sinned.
Aaron understood that their murmuring had not been a mere complaint. It had been madness, an act of rebellion against God. And here, in Moses' response, we find one of the most beautiful and often forgotten lessons in this story. Moses had been the target of the attack. His authority had been questioned, his leadership challenged by his own siblings. He had every right to feel hurt, angry, even to think they got what they deserved. But he did none of that. Instead of holding a grudge, the heart of Moses, whom the Bible describes as very meek, more than all men who were on the face of the earth, was filled with compassion. Seeing his sister suffer the terrible judgment of God, he did the only thing a true leader and a man of God could do. He prayed for her. His prayer, recorded in verse 13, is one of the shortest and most powerful in all of Scripture.
Please, oh God, heal her now.
There was no long speech, no rebuke, only a direct cry from the heart. What an incredible example of forgiveness and love. He interceded for the very person who had wounded him deeply. Through the eyes of faith, we can see in this act of Moses a beautiful reflection, a foreshadowing of what Jesus Christ does for us. Just as Moses interceded for his sister who had sinned against him, Christ, our eternal high priest, intercedes for us before the Father, even when we fail him, when we murmur, or when we doubt him. The prayer of Moses reveals to us the heart of a true mediator. And God heard the prayer of Moses. But God's response teaches us another vital lesson about the difference between forgiveness and consequences. In verse 14, God told Moses that he would heal Miriam. But first, she must undergo a period of discipline. He said that if her own father had spit in her face as a sign of dishonor, would she not be ashamed for 7 days? Therefore, Miriam was to be shut out of the camp for 7 days, and only then could she be brought back. God in his mercy healed her of leprosy, but in his justice, he allowed her to experience the consequence of her sin, shame and separation. The forgiveness of God does not always remove the earthly consequences of our wrongdoings. At times, discipline is necessary to teach us the seriousness of sin and to purify the heart. And there is one final astonishing detail. The text says, "The people did not journey until Miriam was brought in again." The entire camp of Israel, thousands upon thousands, halted and waited 7 days until the prophetess was purified and restored. On one hand, this reveals the importance she still held in the community, but it also underscores a sobering truth. The sin of a leader can hinder the progress of an entire people. Thus, the story of Moses' sister is not merely a tale of pride and punishment. Above all, it is a profound story of forgiveness, the power of intercessory prayer, and a God who is perfectly just, yet infinitely merciful. A lesson that, though often overlooked, lies at the very heart of the Scriptures to teach us all. And so the story of Miriam, the sister of Moses, reaches its lowest point, but also marks the beginning of her restoration. After 7 days of purification, she was welcomed back into the camp and continued the journey with her people. Then why is she remembered with this label of being the cursed or forgotten sister? The truth is, she was not cursed forever, for the mercy of God healed her, and she was not forgotten by God nor by her people, who paused their entire march for her. Perhaps what is truly forgotten is the lesson we so often miss when reading her story. We tend to remember the heroes of the faith as flawless, almost unreachable figures. But the Bible, in its honesty, shows us their humanity, their struggles and their falls. The legacy of Miriam is both complex and powerful. It is the story of the brave girl who saved her brother on the Nile. It is the story of the prophetess who led a nation in praise. But it is also the story of a leader who fell into the trap of pride and envy, a sin that can tempt anyone, no matter how close they are to God. Her story is not in the Bible for us to point fingers, but to serve as a mirror. It warns us of the seriousness of murmuring and of challenging the authority God has established, whether in the family, the church, or society. It teaches us that sin, especially pride, has real and painful consequences that can affect not only ourselves, but our entire community. But above all, her story is a powerful testimony of the power of forgiveness and intercession. It shows us a Moses who, as a figure of Christ, loved his sister at her lowest moment and cried out for her healing. And it reveals a God who, though perfectly just and who disciplines his children, is also infinitely merciful, always willing to heal, to restore, and to receive back anyone who repents with a humble heart. Thank you for joining us on this deep journey to rediscover the story of Miriam, the sister of Moses. We hope this reflection has helped you see this biblical account with new eyes, and that you have found valuable lessons for your own life of faith. If you want to continue exploring the hidden stories and deep teachings of the Holy Scriptures, we invite you to watch one of the 2 videos now, appearing on your screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can continue growing together in the knowledge and love of God. May God bless you, and until next time,